Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Sooner Tailgate Live. My name is Jason Ray, taking you over the next 45 minutes to an hour as we preview specifically Oklahoma and Cincinnati, some of the bigger games in the conference this weekend and overall around the country. And then we'll talk a little bit about at the end for those of you that are University of Oklahoma fans, and not just football fans. Oklahoma announced their fall schedule for Oklahoma softball a couple of days ago, and so we'll talk about that, and I'll show you tell you when Oklahoma is going to be playing fall ball and how you can kind of catch that. So yeah, let's go ahead and get cranked up. So as I mentioned, my name is Jason. You can make sure that you follow us every Friday for Sooner Tailgate Live. And we will, sorry, I saw a little blur there on my screen. Hope that's just me. You guys can't see that. But, sorry, Sooner Tailgate Live, typically at 3 p.m. Had to go a little bit early today, so my apologies. My son is having his 9th birthday party today at around 4 p.m., so I needed to get this taken care of a little bit earlier than normal so I could go get there in time. So I know that you moms and dads around there can appreciate that. So thanks for hanging in and jumping in and getting in here a little bit earlier with us this week. So certainly appreciate that. So make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button, hit that notification bell so that you do know when we go live. Excuse me. So that you do know when we go live. Like I said, typically it's going to be 3 p.m. But we'll switch as necessary. Also, make sure you join Mark and I every Wednesday, typically every Wednesday around 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. as we talk through everything going on Oklahoma related, go in a little bit more depth on everything for Oklahoma Sooners live each and every Wednesday or whenever we're able to do that. And then again, make sure you kind of check us with our Oklahoma post game live. Typically after every Sunday, after every Saturday. Sorry, I'm having problems getting my details mixed up today. But yeah, we'll do that every Saturday. This weekend, since there's so many great games, we'll do kind of an overall recap and then Big 12 recap at around 10 p.m. Central Time on Saturday. I know the game is early, but want to give everyone an opportunity to watch a lot of the other games and have a kind of a total story as we wrap up week one in the Big 12 season for most teams. There's a few that do have a couple of out of conference games this weekend, but we'll talk about those in depth as we get going. As always, make sure that you guys are, very, very in the depths of the comments and things like that. Make sure that you guys are, any questions, any comments, any concerns, anything that you guys want to bring up, please feel free to do that, and I'll get to each and every one of them without fail, and we'll talk through those. So what questions do you have coming up for Oklahoma's game against Cincinnati? As we just let me know as we preview, and anything you're interested in, we'll get to that for sure. So let's just dive right into it, talking about Oklahoma and Cincinnati, the Big 12 opener for both teams, the inaugural Big 12 game for Cincinnati. Obviously, there's a lot of excitement in Cincinnati for not only Oklahoma coming to town, but specifically it being their first Big 12 game. The Fox Big Noon kickoff is going to be there, so certainly a lot of excitement. I know the loss to Miami, Ohio, kind of dampened that a little bit, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. Certainly, I believe it'll be a really big crowd for Cincinnati. It will be a really good atmosphere, so really important for Oklahoma to get off to a good start, do everything they can to keep that crowd out of the game to a certain degree, and just kind of take care of business. Oklahoma comes into right at about a 14-point favorite in this game, and actually had went up substantially. I believe it opened up at around 11 or so, jumped up to 14. So a lot of money going in Oklahoma's favor. game. So a couple of keys that I have for this game. I talked about it on Wednesday with Mark, but two real big keys to the game for me, for Oklahoma on the offensive side of the ball, being able to neutralize their tackles, Corleone and Briggs, are their two, probably the bread and butter of this team overall, but specifically on the defensive side of the ball is their defensive line. So how does Oklahoma find a way to neutralize that defensive line, whether that be a lot of sprint outs, rollout type of situations for DG in the game, quick passing game, not allowing that rush specifically inside to be a factor, maybe some outside zone plays that Oklahoma runs, specifically things like that. So things that you would expect Oklahoma to do to really neutralize. I don't think Oklahoma's going to be able to make a living on Saturday, really just being able to either to run the ball up the middle or just drop back pass, stay in the pocket, and not move to either side. So the strength of Cincinnati's defense is really kind of the weakness of Oklahoma's offense in terms of the interior of the offensive line. Specifically with what Oklahoma's got going on at the guard situation. So I think Savion Byrd is out. I think he's got a little bit of concussion. I don't know that that's necessarily completely 100% confirmed at this point. Those are just some of the things that I'm hearing. Likely Caden Green is going to make his very first start at guard. So you better bet whether it's Byrd or whether it's Caden Green, whether it's Troy Everett, whoever it is in that spot, you better believe that Cincinnati's going to look to try to exploit that in what ways they can. So really important for Levy and company to find a way to really neutralize that against Oklahoma on Saturday. And I think the other big matchup is really Oklahoma's defensive line against Emory Jones, really being able to keep him in the pocket. He ran for over 100 yards against Miami of Ohio on Saturday. So he is obviously a dual threat guy. Oklahoma fans probably remember him. He played a little bit in the bowl game a couple of years ago when he was at Florida. Went to Arizona State last year, and now he's here for his third stop at Cincinnati. So keeping him in the pocket is going to be a big thing. Listening to Teddy really kind of talk about Oklahoma's defense thus far, I think one of the things that he's concerned with that's happening a little bit now, it's happening over the last couple of years, is that Oklahoma's ends and edge guys rush past the quarterback a little bit and really just kind of take themselves out of the play. So Oklahoma needs to be very, very fundamentally and assignment sound, when it comes to that. And I also think Oklahoma opening up the playbook really kind of like they did, maybe not necessarily opening up the playbook, but really being aggressive early and often as they were last week against Tulsa, really having that same mindset, because it's going to be very interesting to see what the game plan is for Cincinnati on the defensive side of the ball, because they were, the last two games that I've watched against Pittsburgh and against Miami of Ohio, their game plan was really different. They were incredibly aggressive against Pitt. They weren't really as aggressive against Miami of Ohio. Their substitution patterns were interesting, particularly defensively, substituting a lot. So I don't know. That was a really one of the weirder games I've seen this year, in that Cincinnati really dominated the game, outrushed or outgained Miami of Ohio by almost 200 yards. The turnover battle was equal. So I think a big part of what that game was, Cincinnati was not able to finish some drives in the red zone, and Miami of Ohio got a couple of big plays, which really kind of led that to what it was, into being not as maybe certainly for Miami High to win the game, but I think Cincinnati could have won the game, fairly convincingly if some of those things wouldn't have happened. So, very very intriguing to see. Skill guys for Cincinnati are pretty solid, probably even better than SMU. I think the one thing that you like from an Oklahoma perspective with Oklahoma offensively against Cincinnati on the defensive side is the fact that they gave up some big plays. Not really the back end of Cincinnati's defense isn't entirely, impressive, I think, at this point in the year. So the fact that if Oklahoma can give DG some time in the pocket, I think there's some big play opportunities there for Oklahoma. So I think a lot of this depends on how Oklahoma starts in this game. If I think Oklahoma can start fast, I think they have an opportunity to maybe even cover the spread and may win fairly convincingly. Now, if this is one of those games where the underdog and the team that's incredibly jacked up early on, if they make some plays, they get off to a lead, or it's pretty much a stalemate early on, I think this is a game that could go into the fourth quarter. So it's like I said, it's the perfect game one. I think it gets you, if you're Oklahoma, it gets you ready for life on the road. In the Big 12, it's a solid opponent, not a great team, but a solid team going into game one of the Big 12, and where you can pick up some confidence if you're Oklahoma going into Iowa State next week, and then certainly Red River in a couple of weeks. So I like Oklahoma to win this game. I think it'll be fairly close, maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of like 31-21. That's kind of where I'm at with this one. I think it's one of those games where, it's certainly in doubt. I think Oklahoma starts to take a little bit of command, maybe late in the third, early fourth, and Cincinnati might get a late touchdown to cover the spread. So I'm going to go Oklahoma 31, Cincinnati 21 in this game. I think one thing that's interesting I saw earlier, I didn't necessarily realize this was the case, but Oklahoma is one of about 5 teams that has not allowed a rushing touchdown this year. So it will be interesting to see if Oklahoma can make Cincinnati one-dimensional and really force Emory Jones to beat you with his arm, which I think is the game plan, in which I think Oklahoma is really going to do everything that they can to make sure that happens. So again, like I said, perfect game one in the Big 12 for the Sooners, and then they'll play an Iowa State team that is clearly not definitely not as good as I thought that they would be coming in, and probably a team right there with Houston that looks like probably the worst team in the Big 12. Houston and certainly Oklahoma State, but we'll get into that in a minute. So drop your comments, thoughts, score predictions, anything you want, and then. But I've got some other games that I just wanted to kind of get through and preview before we finally talk about the softball fall slate schedule. So it's just a tremendous weekend of college football. If you're a big time college football fan, and you don't necessarily just follow Oklahoma, you follow everything across the country, feel free or make sure you make yourself available. It's a loaded slate from 11 a.m. to the 2:30 slot to the 6 o'clock slot, even the 9:30 slot. If USC plays Arizona State, Washington plays Cal, Fresno State, Kent State, always some good Pac-12 after dark type of stuff going on there as well. So the first one is, there's a couple around the same time as the Oklahoma Cincinnati game. If you're a channel surfer, if you're like me, have the luxury of having a couple of different screens up to be able to watch. So Florida State at Clemson. Florida State's given 2. Clemson has pretty much been written off since that opening game against Duke, and then Florida State looked great against LSU. Still looked really good against Southern Miss, but did not look solid at all. Really, just kind of escaped that victory against Boston College by by 2 or 3 points there. So this one will be interesting. Something tells me Clemson's going to figure it out. This is the first time that they've been a road dog. I mean, they've been a home dog in quite some time, with Florida State giving 2 in this game. I don't know. Something just tells me maybe it's because everyone that I've seen, I've not seen a soul pick Clemson in this game, but I'm going to actually pick Clemson. I think the home field advantage. I think everything that happened in the Duke game was a little bit of a mirage in terms of all the turnovers and situations that happened. And Duke's not a bad football team, so I'll lean Clemson in this one. Another game very locally charged here, SMU at TCU, 11 a.m. on FS1. TCU is almost a 7-point pick in this game. So SMU has kept it close between TCU the last few years. I think specifically last year, there was the closest game that TCU had up until they ran into that, the college football playoff specifically, but then Georgia absolutely in the championship game. I think TCU probably wins this game, but I think it's a little bit closer. I think this will be a game that's decided on the final possession, one way or the other. Like TCU probably by a field goal or so, but would not even remotely be surprised to see SMU win this game. The jury's out a little bit on SMU. They played well against Oklahoma. It's one of those things where you kind of just look and see how well did TCU play? I'm sorry, how well did SMU play, or did Oklahoma actually play a poor game in that game? So we'll see as we look in that one more situation where you kind of get an idea of really what SMU looks like as a team overall. Number 19 Colorado goes to Oregon, 2:30 p.m. ABC game. We'll follow Oklahoma. I'm sorry, never mind. That's an ABC game. Oklahoma Cincinnati is a Fox game. So again, I think this is the one where everything starts to catch up with Colorado a little bit. Colorado State is not a good football team, and they outplayed Colorado for a large majority of that game. And when I say Colorado State's not a good football team, like they're not anywhere near a top 25 team. Could be certainly a team that goes to a bowl game, but that's not a team that I think in any capacity is going to challenge in the Mountain West. So I actually like Oregon here by a bunch. I like them to cover. I think having Travis Hunter out is going to be a problem. Colorado's having problems. Have had problems running the ball consistently over their first few games, and then I just think Oregon's just a much different animal than what they've faced early on this year. So I like Oregon by 24 to 28 points in this one. UCLA, number 22 UCLA at number 11 Utah. This is the game on Fox. I was one game ahead of myself at 2:30 p.m. following Oklahoma's game against Cincinnati. Utah is a 6-point pick. This line has moved about 2 or 3 points here over the last couple of days, which to me and to most people think that really signifies Cam Rising probably making his debut for Utah this week. Dante Moore has been excellent for UCLA, true freshman. So this will be an interesting one. I think this is another game that's going to be really, really good that a lot of people aren't talking about. I've actually seen some people think UCLA has what it takes to go in and complete the upset over Utah. I think UCLA covers, but I think Utah wins this one in a close one. They just find a way to win, very similar to what they did a couple of weeks ago against Baylor, where they didn't necessarily play well. They just found a way to win late. CBS game at 2:30, number 15 Ole Miss against number 13 Alabama. So in this one, there's a lot of people that are really just starting to discount Alabama, and maybe for good reason. I don't know. They did not look good at all against South Florida last week. Looked very disinterested in the game. Quarterback play was atrocious, and I think everyone found out that even though Jalen Milroe is probably not where they would like him to be, and he's certainly not, in line with some of the Alabama greats over the last couple of years. I think he's clearly the best that they got. Ole Miss is a little bit. They struggled for three quarters against Tulane. Tulane really outplayed them in that game. I think Alabama wakes up a little bit, and I think, for no other reason, they're going to be in a little bit of desperation mode. Yes, from an SEC perspective, they have no record, they have no losses, but I think the national perception is really negative towards Alabama right now. I think, if they lose, I just don't see them going 0-2 to start the season at home. So I've got Alabama. Wouldn't really lay any money on this one, but I think Alabama wins this one 10 to 14 points. Going back to the Big 12, another 2:30 p.m. game on ESPN. BYU traveling to Kansas. Both of these teams, kind of played different ways this past weekend. BYU played really well on the road win at Arkansas. Kansas played just okay, kind of going through the motions against a Nevada team that's not really very good. For those of you that didn't stay, won that game, I believe 31-24, 38-31, one of those two. It was a 7-point game. Didn't really play well. Just if you want to look at it, the week before, Idaho beat Nevada like 33-7. So Nevada is not a good team, and Kansas kind of went through the motions. On this one, there's a lot of me that wants to pick BYU to win this game. Wouldn't be surprised. I actually think they will. This is one of those where I'm picking the upset. I think BYU goes into Lawrence and wins straight up over Kansas on Saturday, in a little bit of an upset. Again, another 2:30. So 2:30 is going to be a 2:33 p.m. slot's going to be a big time for just Big 12 overall. Texas Tech giving 6 to West Virginia at 2:30 p.m. on ESPN Plus. I think it's one of those games that's a little bit again under the radar. Again, Texas Tech has lost a couple, both non-conference games, but still they want to get off to a really good start in the Big 12. So I actually like Texas Tech in this game a lot. I picked I did actually. This one opened up at 3, and this one's moved to 6. So I like Texas Tech at 3 a lot. At 6, I still like them, but I think this ends up being probably a touchdown game. But I don't like them as much as I do at 3. But I do think Texas Tech will do enough to go win that game by a touchdown in Morgantown. Then we got Oklahoma State plus 3.5 at Iowa State, 3 p.m. on FS1. This is arguably could be a matchup of the 2 of the 3 worst teams in the Big 12. Oklahoma State looked horrible against South Alabama. Lost the game. I think it was 30-7. If I'm not mistaken, around. 30-7, and South Alabama really took their foot off the gas in the second half. They really didn't even try to score much. They were really kind of concerned with just getting out of there with a win. Oklahoma State's quarterback situation is in shambles. Mike Gundy still is continuing to play this 4 series for each quarterback situation. I don't know if he'll get to a situation where he'll just rely on one kid to play, but it's just a recipe for disaster in how he's managed this. Not only that, they don't have a lot of big play guys on the outside, and Iowa State's strength is on the defensive side of the ball. And on the other token, Iowa State is abysmal on the offensive side of the ball. This one, no joke, the first 1-14 may win this game. I don't even know what to think, honestly. Iowa State lost against Ohio last week, 10-7. Oklahoma State lost. I would lean just maybe ever so slightly Oklahoma State in this game, because I think when push comes to shove, they may have a couple more weapons offensively than what Iowa State does, but I am not would not be super excited about either side of this game. It'll be entertaining to watch for sure, but wouldn't as a prediction goes. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm just flipping a coin. I think at this point with these two teams. 6 p.m. Oregon State in the Pac-12, number 14, giving 3 points at Washington State. This should be a very entertaining game. Oregon State is, if you haven't watched them, really, really good football team with DJ Uiagalelei there at quarterback. Really good running game. Very good defensive team, particularly against the run and on the defensive line. So I like Oregon State to win this game by 7 to 10 points. I think Washington State's going to be – they can't really run the ball, so they're going to be very one-dimensional with Cam Ward, like Oregon State in this one as well. Texas, number 3, giving 14.5 to Baylor at the 6:38 ABC game again. This is a situation where Texas – in predictable fashion last week played they played Wyoming. It was a tie game going in the fourth quarter, really just kind of going through the motions. Didn't really seem to care too much about the game. Big 12 opener for them. Texas has 2 fairly tough games when they go to Baylor. Then they host Kansas next week before Red River. But I think Texas wins this one fairly comfortably. Baylor's in a little bit of in dire straits as well. They just don't look like a great football team this year. They lost those first 2 games, played horribly against Texas State, played a little bit better against Utah, just couldn't find a way to win, and then just looked just okay against LIU, Long Island University, last weekend. So I think Baylor can kind of keep this one close. If I was betting the game, I probably would take Baylor in the 14.5. But don't feel comfortable really either way. Number 6, Ohio State, giving 3 at Notre Dame, 6:30 p.m. and really what most people think is the marquee matchup of the weekend. Ohio State struggled early on, kind of got it together against Western Kentucky, who's a pretty decent Group of 5 mid-major team. Notre Dame has looked really good, particularly throwing on the offensive side of the ball. Sam Hartman has done a really good job. I actually like Notre Dame in this one to find a way to win the game overall. Obviously, cover the spread and win overall. So we've got Iowa, number 24 ranked Iowa, getting 14.5 points from Penn State, CBS game on 6:30 as well. I was a little bit decimated by injuries, particularly on the from a running back perspective. So I'll take Penn State in this game, even though this will probably be a low-scoring game. I think Penn State can win this one in the neighborhood of 27 to 10, somewhere in that area. Then our last game here, just really kind of looking at the Big 12. I'd mentioned the 2 Pac-12 games at the 9:30 slot, but UCF going to Kansas State. Interesting in the line in this game. This line started at 8. Kansas State was giving 8 in this game, and it's all the way down to 3.5. That's a lot of movement. So Vegas may know something that I don't know. I think I feel like Kansas State will kind of come back and play well in this game after not playing incredibly well against Missouri last weekend, and win this game, by a touchdown. And so the last thing I briefly wanted to mention, as I mentioned, Oklahoma has unveiled a couple of days ago, maybe yesterday it was, their fall softball schedule. They have a couple of games against one's against North Texas University. It's not the University of North Texas, but it's a North Texas Central, something like that, NAIA school, and then Seminole State as well. But I think the most important ones are the ones that you see on the screen here is the fall battle series, like they did last year. Very inter-squad scrimmage. I think right now that's a better situation than anyone Oklahoma could possibly play in fall ball. So all of these are on Wednesday nights, except for November 9th, which is a Thursday. So starting October 4th, so less than 2 weeks. 4th, 11th, 18th, 25th, the 1st, and as I mentioned, Thursday, November 9th, to conclude the fall series for Oklahoma. So really really good time to check out some of the new guys. When you talk about the transfer portal, Kelly Maxwell obviously is the one that a lot of people are interested in, but a couple of the new pitchers, Peyton Monticelli, and then Riley Ludlam is the new backup to Kinsey Hansen, and then Carly Keeney from a pitcher perspective, and then just some of the new freshmen coming in. It'll be nice to see, and as Oklahoma, a couple of position battles that will be very, very interesting to watch and to see how that unfolds. So keep an eye on that. All of those games will actually be streamed on ESPN Plus. All of them will be at 6 p.m. So these are on Wednesday. Obviously, they're not going to interfere with any football stuff. So we'll get on here and we'll give some thoughts on how those are going and who's standing out, who's playing well, who may be struggling, and things like that. So I thank everybody for joining today. Thanks for hanging in there with me, being here a little bit. A little bit early. A couple of the score predictions I'll put on here: 34-24 from Danny Tippins, and then DG. Not really a prediction, but Oklahoma. This is a game that Oklahoma needs to find a way to win, one way or the other, as they start conference season for the last time in the Big 12. So, again, thanks everybody for joining. Just a reminder: join me 10 p.m. tomorrow night as we talk about everything Big 12, everything Oklahoma. And like I said, the reason I wanted to go at 10 p.m. as opposed to our immediately following the game is wanted to give a lot of people opportunity to watch some of these Big 12 games and some of these big games through Saturday, including myself, and then just have an overarching view on how everything stacks up as Oklahoma finishes this week, and as the Big 12 really gets into motion for sure next week. So again, everybody enjoy the football. There's 2 or 3 good games on tonight, and if this is a weekend that you can push the honeydew list aside, please do so, and enjoy the weekend of college football. And like I said, make sure you come and join us at 10 p.m. tomorrow. But for now, I'm signing off. So Boomer Sooner, God bless.